Alright everyone, this is a quick and dirty tutorial on how to, first of all, know how to navigate and start the Boeing 777 Worldliner by Ramzzess. A little bit about how to program your flight plan and getting it up in the air, getting it to follow a route that you want to. So I know people have problems with this. It is a very complex system, but I'll show you the easy way. So first of all, you're going to want to go in here. This is the main menu of the plane. I have my save statistics, so I'm just going to hit all these values in here. I got it all saved, so I'm just going to load it. What you're going to want to do is, you can't really go through here and load fuel with X-Plane because it's just not, it's not the way this plane is meant to work. It's got its own fuel loading, so that's the way you got to do it. In order to officially load the plane, you're going to need to have your doors to manual so that you can open your doors. You're going to want those open. You've got your ground power units, your fuel trucks, stairs, passenger bus, and shocks. I like to keep the engine volume kind of low because it gives it a real feel. You're not going to hear the engines blaring in your face when you're in the cockpit in real life, so why should you in a simulator? So first of all, we'll go ahead and look up here. We'll go ahead and turn our battery on, and both of our GPUs. You'll hear the typical Boeing caution sound. It's going to let you know that power is applied. You can see all of those warnings and cautions here. Get rid of that, you can just hover over accept and get rid of all of them. There is quite a bit of them, so. Alright. Go ahead and turn on our electrical power systems. We're not going to turn the APU on yet because it's got a 20-minute limit set by default. We're going to use the APU later to eventually give the engine some bleed air to be able to start the engines. And we'll come up here. One thing you're going to want to do first, I turn reel limits off because it's just a waiting game, but you're going to want to turn your ADIRUs on. That's what tells the plane where it's at. It gives it its GPS fix, and the flight management computer cannot work if it doesn't know where the plane is. In real life, it takes like 10 to 20 minutes to get a fix. If you uncheck reel limits over here, it'll be almost instantaneous. It'll take about a minute to 2 minutes, honestly. So this is going to be a pretty short flight. It's going to be from LAX to Phoenix, which is a total flight time of around 45 minutes, so it's not a whole lot. It's just for the demonstrations of this tutorial. First of all, now that you've got all this set in, I've got 10,000 kilograms, or 10 times 1,000 kilograms of fuel, and we'll go ahead and load fuel, and you'll see it load up here. If you're really curious, you can watch it happen in real time down here. You can see your fuel being loaded, kilograms times 1,000, like I said. This will give you your fuel temperature. Now you'll see your ADIRUs are in line mode, that's what you want. And while we're waiting on that, we can go ahead and go to our FMC or MCDU. And this is going to tell you to enter your inertial position. That's what we did with our ADIRUs. So go ahead and clear that message. Go to initiate. This always comes up. So we're at LAX, so we'll go ahead and put the K in there for the North America ITCAO, I think it is, ICAO. And this is basically a scratch pad. So what you put in here is what is going to go wherever you click on these side buttons. So I've got LAX here. If I click here, it's going to transport it to there. This is going to give you the GPS fix of the actual airport. And you can use that, but it's not very accurate. This is your actual position of the plane. So what you're going to want to do is click on that. That's going to put it into your scratch pad. And then click here. And that's going to set your inertial position. And you'll notice this will all change up here. You're going to get your your vertical speed indicator, your airspeed altimeter, basically your PFD, primary flight display. It's all going to be right in there. What we want to do here for flight planning is we're going to want to switch this from map to flight plan. That way, when you're keying in your fixes here, you know where you're going. Okay, so we can start off with route. We're at LAX, so we'll put that in the scratch pad, click it up here. We're going to be taking off on runway 24 left, so we'll put 24L right there. And our destination is Phoenix, Sky Harbor, so we'll do KPHX and put that there. Now, one thing about if you ever make any changes to your flight plan, we'll have to activate this first, and you'll see the execute button light up. Nothing is ever set in stone until you click that execute button. You can see it up here on your flight plan. It'll show up as white dashes. That's basically it's kind of like a preview of what you want to do. If you actually want to execute it, we'll go ahead and click execute, and then you'll see it turn into that lavender purple line. That means it's actually programmed. So what I like to do first is go from departure and arrivals. You'll see LAX right here. Basically, this is going to select a departure route for the departure out of LAX. One of my favorite ones is SLI, but you've got to know your headings and radials on how to. Basically, you'll fly on a certain radial from a VOR, and you'll intercept a certain course, and then you'll basically depart from that way. SEBI 7, I think, is a good one. We'll go ahead and. By the way, I highly recommend you get ForeFlight for your iPad or Android tablet or whatever. It's very, very useful in finding routes. You can actually link it to X-Plane, and it will tell you where you're at. You can file flight plans through ForeFlight, and it actually has a pretty good application in real-life scenarios. If you're actually flying a plane, it will track your GPS and your routes and all that. You can actually file a flight plan to ATC in real life with this app, which is pretty cool. It's pretty legit. So I'm just going to go in here real quick in the ForeFlight. You can't see this, but I'm going to go ahead and look at some departure routes that look good for right now. It's looking like SEBI 9 looks decent. But we'll go ahead and go with my favorite one. We'll go with an SLI departure. So SIDS, yeah, so we'll go through here. These are your SIDS. I don't exactly remember what the acronym stands for. It's standard something departure. So anyways, we'll go ahead and select SLI 5. You'll see it lines up with runway 24 left. That's where you want to go. And then we'll hit execute. And now you'll see the plan change here. Now we'll go to arrivals, and stars is your standard arrival route. So what I like to do on this one is Gila 5 is a pretty good one, and you can use a BLH transition. Oops. And if you got ForeFlight, you'll be able to see all this stuff. So it's easier to use ForeFlight. You can use this up here. This on your map, you can change the zoom on that to however nautical miles you want to see. It's in real life scenarios, this is pretty easy to navigate, but we're on a simulator here, so it's kind of hard to see. But you can see it all real time on ForeFlight, which is pretty neat. So once you've selected your transition, you're going to want to go over to your actual approach. This is going to be the runway that you're landing on. I like to do the RNAV 7 left. So we'll select that. We don't need a transition for that because we've already got our standard arrival route. And remember, you always have to hit execute, and it'll send the command. So we go to our legs here. You'll notice over here, these dashed lines is going to be your airspeed. You'll notice nothing's there yet. I'll get to that. A lot of people have problems with that. This is related to your VNAV up here. Basically, your vertical navigation is going to automatically take you to the selected altitude that you want, and a lot of people don't have this here, and I'll show you how to get that properly. Over here is going to be your altitude. So that'll all be populated once we go into our performance. We set our takeoff speed, all of that stuff. So what I like to do is I don't like to do a standard just departure and then arrival route. I gotta have fixes in between. So you'll see here is going to be all your GPS fixes or your vectors to get out of the airport. You can go to the next page, and then it'll have all this. You'll see a discontinuity right here. That basically means that there are no fixes in between your departure route and your arrival route. So I like to go ahead and I like to go to TRM, which is a VOR out by. So it'll get you going east towards Phoenix. So put it in the scratch pad. We'll put it right in there. It'll ask you which one do you mean. I want the top one, and it'll be dashed, and then I can hit execute, and then it'll send the command to go to TRM. So I'm going to put that in my ForeFlight here, so I know where I'm going. Just kind of keeps things easy. ForeFlight is not free, but it is, if you're really serious about this, it is really good to get used to. I highly recommend it for anyone who actually wants to become a pilot. It just makes things a lot easier in the long run. Alright, so let's check our routes. Oh, here you can hit steps. This is what you're controlling right here. You can go to steps. It'll cycle through the different steps through your route. This is going to be our approach. It'll keep going. We'll get to Gila. And eventually we'll probably intercept our initial approach right here. We'll get a glide slope and all that. And then it's got a loiter pattern for missed approaches at the end here. So that's what we want. That's what would happen in the real world. And then we got 07 left right here. So that's basically what we want. And this is our hold pattern right here in case we get a missed approach. Alright, so we got everything in here for now. We can go ahead and go to our route and then performance initiate. You can request your zero fuel weight, which is kind of nice. You don't have to get a calculator out and all that stuff. Don't really need to do so much for reserve, so I'll just go ahead and put 1 in there. We'll have a cruise altitude of, say, 35,000 feet, so we'll do flight level 350. Put that guy in there. Cost index. I did some research on cost index. Basically what that means is it's a number that airlines use. It's kind of like an average that they use of how much the flight is going to cost. It's unique to airlines from what I understand. If somebody knows more about it, please by all means let me know. But that's the way I've understood it. And I've always been told that 99 is a good number to put in there, so we'll go ahead and just throw that in there. So thrust limit. We can go full. Basically, this is just going to limit your thrust for takeoff and throughout the flight. You can go 5%, 15%, or you can go to, full power. We want full thrust throughout the flight. Basically, it's for economy. If you want to limit your thrust during flight, you're not going to have as much fuel consumption, and that is also going to be programmed into the FMC, and it's going to know that. But we'll just go full right here. And the OAT looks like it's 20 degrees Celsius or centigrade. So put 20 right here. We'll put that in there because that is important for how your engines operate. And then we can go to takeoff. We're not fully loaded with fuel, so I don't need that much flaps. So we'll go ahead and put 5 in there. And then we can request our CG percentage. And then we want our reference speeds. This is what it's going to tell us, what speeds we're at, when to rotate, and all that. So we'll go ahead and turn that on. And it's not activated until you hit these keys over here. So you'll see it turn white. That means it's activated. Alright, I think we're pretty much done with the FMC portion. Now you'll notice if we go to our legs page, there we are. We've got our airspeed programmed there for our vertical navigation. We've got our altitude here. And we've got our discontinuity in here, which I'll show you how to deal with later. And everything looks good for now. Now, what a lot of people do is they get this far, but they forget to change the plan to map. What you want is map, because this is going to tell you where your top of ascension is, where your top of descend is, all of that. This is what you're going to want this up for the rest of your flight. Alright, so we're going to be flying at 35,000 feet, so we'll go ahead and change our altitude to flight level 350. And our first indicated speed is going to be about 250 knots, so we'll go ahead and change that as well. We can go ahead and close our doors. We're about ready to push back, I think. Oh, one thing, you want to set your auto brakes to RTO, which stands for rejected takeoff. So in the event if an engine goes out, immediately if the plane knows you're taking off and you pull it back to idle, it's going to automatically apply max brakes for a rejected takeoff, which is what you want. You want to make sure your configuration is all correct, like your speed brakes here. You want to make sure that they're down, because you'll get a real nasty warning sign when you go full thrust to take off, and it's very irritating. So it's just best to keep all your configurations right. Our stabilizers are good. I think we can go ahead. Our doors are closed. We can pull the stairs, fuel truck, all that stuff away. And I think we're about ready to... oh, and flight directory. Definitely want that on, or you're not going anywhere. We can go ahead and turn our nav and DNAV on right now if we want to. Alright. So, we'll go up here to our overhead panel. This is where we're going to want to pretty much turn almost all the things on that we need during flight. So our hydraulic system, we're going to want to turn that on. These are your electric pumps. Those will work now. We're not getting hydraulics yet on our engines because our engines are running yet, which is pretty self-explanatory. Go ahead and turn our smoking signs on and off. Auto and on. These are our fuel pumps here. We'll go ahead and turn that on for fuel balancing. We'll cross feed. Anti-ice, just keep the auto. Better to have it, not need it, than to need it, not have it. Go ahead and turn our beacons on. Strobes, taxi lights. Want to make sure that's all on. This is pretty important. You don't want hypoxia, so we'll want to pressurize the cabin. We'll get our bleed airs going on our engines. Our auxiliary power unit, we're definitely going to want that on to start our engines. This is for air conditioning. Just keep it to auto. It's a simulator, you're not going to feel the air, so turn that on. Auto start, and we're going to want to turn our engine EEC modes to normal. That's important. Alright, so we'll go ahead and go up here, make sure everything's good to go. Fuel pumps are on. We can turn our APU on. You'll hear it start. And we've got a checklist here if you really want to follow all that. You really should follow this stuff anyways, but you can go to before start if you want to. It'll tell you everything you need to know in here. Looks like our APU is up and running, so we'll go ahead and hit generate. And we're definitely going to want our fuel control to run, because cut off you're not going to get very far. And then now while we're down here, we'll turn our radios on. And everything looks good for now. So now that our APU is generating, we can pull our ground power off. And then open the menu, pull it away, pull the chocks, and then we will call the tug for pushback. Now the tug is kind of interesting to operate, as it actually changes your thrust with your engines to operate the tug. So we'll go ahead and release the brakes, and then we will start pushing back. Kind of at a bad gate. I'm at gate 22, which doesn't really give me a whole lot of room. But we'll go ahead and push back anyways. and send the tug away by clicking this here. Make sure you remember to put your thrust back to normal. We're back to idle. And we'll want to make sure that our parking brakes are set. You'll see it right here. And we'll make sure our APU's bleed air is on, which it is. We should be able to start engine 1. We'll go ahead and watch, see what happens. It's an auto start, so it's probably going to go pretty well. And that flash is just the generators coming on with the engine. We can probably go ahead and start engine 2. Alright, I think we'll go ahead and set our flaps like we said in the MCDU. We'll go ahead and set it to 5 degrees of flaps. And you'll see them lowering right here. You'll get a huge warning if you forget to set your flaps and you go to take off. And like I said, it's really irritating, so we'll make sure we get everything out of the way at the beginning. And I think we'll go ahead and start taxiing. So one thing you want to get used to is the 777 has a very, very wide turning radius. It's just something to get used to. You got to take your turns ahead of time. You got to know where you're going. Another cool thing is you'll notice the 777 actually has rear wheel steering as well. Alright, so now that we're at the runway, we'll go ahead and make sure everything is in order. We've got our flaps are at 5, we're at rejected takeoff. We could go ahead and turn our APU off at this time. You will get a warning that your APU is overheating. It's been on for too long, so we'll go ahead and turn that off. We're getting our bleed air from our engines and our hydraulics and electrical power as well from our engines, so we don't need this on right now. And we've got our lights are on. We'll go ahead and do a quick control check. Control check looks good, and looks like we are ready for takeoff. One of the things I don't like about X-Plane is they go a little overboard and crazy with the balloons and the birds and all that, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that so we don't crash into it. Oh, looks like you can't. You can get rid of the birds, but not the balloons. Well, we'll see what happens. Go ahead and turn our flight directory on. We will retract the gear and bring our flaps back up. We'll see we're at vectors now. I like to turn this back to my first fix. This is how you change fixes, by the way. So you can click on this fix, it'll put it in the scratch pad, select it for where you're at now, and then hit execute. And right now I'm kind of at manually flying the plane over to the first GPS fix because of just the standard departure route is just, you have to kind of manually fly it to the fix, but after that everything is pretty much good to go. And And there you'll see the flight directory picked up the next fix, and it's going to go ahead and take us there. So we've got our autopilot on, flight directory is obviously on, and then you'll see here, this is going to be your first VOR fix. This is Seal Beach 6 SLI, so we'll go ahead and fly there. Your arrival time will be 21:03 Zulu time, and you're 21.5 for nautical miles away. You can also see that all in here in your FMC. Your speed should be 314 indicated, and you should be flight level 220 by the time you get there. That's not always going to happen. You'll see auto throttle is automatically engaged once you engage the autopilot, which is pretty nice. It's going to keep us at the speeds we need to be at. And the plane is pretty much flying itself here. You'll see that your auto brakes went ahead and went from RTO to off, which is what you want. You want to put them to your desired selection on when you start your descent, because you're going to want that on for landing. The reason why you want auto brakes for landing is you want to practice your flare, your landing flare. You want to make sure that's right. There's a lot you got to worry about when you're landing. Speed brakes, thrust reverse. It's just one less thing you got to worry about turning the auto brakes. It's kind of nice. Up here, if you want, you can go ahead and zoom out of your flight plan. It'll give you pretty much a detailed route of what's going on. This is the discontinuity here, so you'll have to, once you hit TRM, you'll have to manually change to your DLH fix up here, which you can do down here by selecting this, the scratch pad, and then putting it at the top. We don't want to do that yet. You'll notice some things in here. This is top of climb, so you should be at flight level 350 or 35,000 feet by the time you hit this circle here. Same with TD, top of descent. That's when you're going to start your descent. It's right here when you get to DLH. So we'll go ahead and zoom back in. And if you want, you can hit what is that? Data, I think it is. Yes, you hit data. This will put all the stuff in your FMC along with your fixes on your map here, which is pretty nice. So you'll see we're going at a steady 314 knots, still climbing up to flight level 350. It's pretty cloudy out. My last flight I had some turbulence, so it was very, very interesting ride. This green marker here will start to come closer to the plane as you start reaching your desired altitude, which is kind of a nice feature. So we'll start our turn here. So you'll see in about 7 nautical miles we're going to reach our first fix or VOR. Because as far as we're going now, we're navigating from VOR station to VOR station. Nifty little feature of this this 777 by Ramzzess is he incorporated some pre-recorded PA system stuff, like for this one, for example.
Ladies and gentlemen, our aircraft continues to climb. We would like to remind you that all flights of our airline are non-smoking. For your safety, the lavatories have been equipped with smoke detectors. Damaging or disconnecting the smoke detectors is strictly prohibited. On the overhead panel, you will find a personal number.
You can turn the taxi lights off.
And a flight attendant button. The lavatory for business class passengers are located at the front of the airplane, and and for the economy class passengers in the back and center of the airplane. For your safety, when seated, we recommend to keep your seatbelts fastened.
And this is where I started hitting the turbulence earlier. It looks like the weather hasn't changed too much. It starts to get a little rocky. You can see that we've got a pretty good headwind though, or tailwind. We've got an indicated of 314 with a ground speed of 413, so we've got a pretty decent tailwind just pushing us along. We'll probably be much better off at 35,000 feet. We'll hit the jetway up there, or the jet stream. But basically, by the time we hit TC, or top of climb, we should be at our 35,000 feet. You'll notice this line will start to get closer and closer towards your little blip here. Yeah, we're experiencing some serious turbulence. Not as bad as it was earlier. Yeah, I won't go through the whole thing. I'll do another video on landing so you guys can understand landing. Getting your glide slope, you'll want to switch to approach over here. How to descend, how to get that going. But for now, I hope this was helpful in the least bit. I'm by no means a real Boeing 777 pilot or a master at any of this, but this is what I've found to get me in the air. It gets me to and from my destinations without any issues. I don't understand all the systems, but hopefully this was very informative for you guys. Alright, thanks.